There are a lot of ways to measure enthusiasm and energy in the political campaign. Some are more scientific, like tracking polling or first-time political donors. Others are more vibes-based, like how much a candidate breaks through on social media or in group chats of family and friends. And when it comes to Vice President Kamala Harris, there may not be a better indicator of newfound energy than a series of Zooms recently organized on her behalf. Just hours after President Biden dropped his re-election bid less than 2 weeks ago, a group of Black women held a fundraising call, which organizers said ended up drawing more than 40,000 people.
We all knew that in that moment, 1, we wanted to be united. 2, we wanted to be in sisterhood with each other. And 3, we knew we had to get to work.
There was a Zoom for Black men, then another spinoff.
White women, this is our opportunity to show up, not only for ourselves, but for Black women.
White Women for Kamala Harris, which broke internet records. In the end, the Harris campaign said it closed its first official week, having raised $200 million. So today, with just under 100 days to go until Election Day, we check in on this brand new race. Where did all this Democratic energy come from? And how sustainable is it? From the New York Times, I'm Ested Herndon. This is The Run-Up. So, considering all those big numbers, on Monday afternoon, I checked in with the organizer of that record-breaking Zoom call.
My name is Shannon Watts. I'm the founder of Moms Demand Action, an author, a speaker, and an organizer.
Yeah, I wanted to ask from that perspective of someone who recognizes kind of the organizing work that Democrats do. There's certainly been a landmark kind of couple weeks in the party. Can you just take me through, where were you when you learned that President Biden was stepping down from re-election? And what was the conversation among you and others who do a lot of work for Democrats?
Yeah, it was a Sunday, and I think I was running errands, and my husband texted me and said, it happened. And I wasn't sure what he meant. And so I looked at my phone and I realized that the president had just sent out his tweet. And I have always been a fan of Kamala Harris, hoping that she would one day be president. And so it was important to me to start rallying around that cause instantaneously, because it was that very crucial moment that needed to happen, so that there wasn't confusion, so that there wasn't a debate, so that there wasn't infighting. There was just a very clear path forward, and I wanted to be part of that.
Were you thinking about that before he had made his announcement? Were there plans made in case, or was it just that was your immediate thought once you saw the tweet?
There were no plans, but, I was among some of the people online, even though I didn't really talk about it publicly, because there was a lot of people being attacked on social media for feeling like the president had done an amazing job, but that it was time for him to step back. I was in that camp for sure. But
you were kind of privately in that camp.
I was privately in that camp. Mm-hmm. And if he didn't step back, I would have supported him all the way through. But it just felt to me like this was the time for Vice President Harris to be able to step up.
Mm-hmm. You sent a tweet that said, time for organize a white woman conference call like the Black women and men to support Vice President Harris. Who's in? That's obviously led to these efforts that we've seen over the last couple days that have been, I think, a real sign of the energy that's surrounding this campaign. But I was just wondering for you, was that off the cuff? And what got rolling immediately after?
Basically what happened was the president decided he would step back. It was clear that very soon afterward, because he endorsed Kamala Harris, that she would be the presumptive nominee. And a woman named Joteka Edie, who runs an organization called Win with Black Women, in just a few hours' time, organized this amazing conference call that had over 40,000 participants and raised over $1.5 million. And then on Monday, my friend Roland Martin did the same with Black men. And I kept watching this thinking, well, are white women going to step into the breach here and, honor and emulate them by tapping into their own political and economic power? And I just sort of sent that tweet thinking somebody else might volunteer to do it. But there were so many people that said, hey, yes, let's do this. And so I was connected immediately to Joteka Edie, and she was so supportive and gave me a lot of counsel. And I think some of the best counsel she gave me was, your call is much different than our call. We have been doing the work. Black women have been at the vanguard of activism and feminism in America. What you're doing is less of a rally and more of a reckoning. So that is kind of the attitude that we went into our Zoom with.
Mm-hmm. How did you spread the word to get, how many people ended up on the Zoom?
Over 160,000 people on the Zoom and 200,000 people watched it on streaming platforms.
I mean, that's incredible. So, how did that work it out?
I think there was a lot of pent-up excitement and demand to have a call that would raise a lot of money, that would show people, particularly white women, what the next step forward would be. And look, I think there are a lot of regrets about the fact that more white women voted for Donald Trump when he ran against Biden than they did when he ran against Hillary Clinton. Like a real fear that this would be repeated and a desire to understand how to not make the same mistake. And it just went viral. Glennon Doyle was someone who reached out to me pretty immediately. She has a huge following, not just on her podcast, but also online. Busy Phillips, other women who have big social media platforms started sharing it on Twitter and on Instagram just to save the date. And we had so much interest that we really knew we were on to something.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask about some of the conversation that's developed around these calls. I mean, so they've taken on somewhat of a life of their own, but you mentioned the kind of Black women and men. There's been queer Black men, Native Americans. There's been Latinas for Harris. There's also seemed some criticizing of people talking about maybe this sort of kind of racial self-sorting is a little uncomfortable. I wanted to get your take on that. Did you think that when you all were doing it, it was going to move in this way? And what's your response to the idea that specifically organizing around racial markers like white womanhood maybe turned some people off?
Well, look, I think it would be a problem if we were creating an organization specifically of white women. This was more about a different conversation. And the fact that I had Joteka Edie support, that was really my North Star. And I think there should be conversation about those things. I mean, we have different identities in this country and different identities have different work to do. I can only speak as a white woman who is hoping that, we can change, we can flip the script. We know that there are these swing voters who are women, right? Because white women are the largest voting bloc, but we're divided among these lines of religion and marital status and education. And if we can get even some of those women to vote for Kamala Harris, then we can swing the entire election because we are such a large voting bloc. And that was the conversation I wanted for us to have. I know other groups are having other conversations. And look, as a grassroots organizer, I'm thrilled to see people raising dollars and awareness. The key is, can we come together now in one large coalition to help Kamala Harris win? And I think the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the words reckoning. I listened to some of the recordings of the conversation. And it did feel like there was some language of people who had a sense of making sure they were prioritizing the Black women. I guess I wanted for you, is that a fair reading of what we think the tone was? What do you mean by the conversation being a reckoning?
To admit that the white women who have voted for Democrats, it is incumbent on them to have a conversation with the 53% who haven't. And that we own that. There's often this not all white woman attitude after we are responsible for losing the election for the Democratic candidate. And I think we just wanted to acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think this energy was missing from Harris' campaign in 2019? I remember when I was her reporter, she tried to activate many of these same networks and didn't get some of the response. What do you think has changed?
It's a great question. I mean, I've always been a huge Kamala Harris supporter and fan who wanted her to be elected president. I just think sometimes it's all in timing, right? The political landscape just depends on what's happening in the zeitgeist. And I think that the fact that we have such a short amount of time to elect a woman and that the choice is really between freedom and fascism, all of it plays a role in this. And I also think as a woman, I can tell you, I never imagined we'd have an opportunity to elect another woman so soon, right? The fact that President Biden removed himself and we lost in 2016 and now maybe in 2024, I'm a 53-year-old Gen Xer. I started to think this wasn't going to happen in my lifetime. And now for the first time in a long time, I have hope. And I think that is really energizing a lot of women too.
Mm-hmm. What needs to happen to make this energy sustainable?
Do you mean in the 99 days or do you mean after the election?
Both, I guess. But I mean, I was more so asking the 99 days. Or do you think it's going to be there for the 99 days? Is it in the air?
I was in my late 30s when Barack Obama was the nominee and a candidate, and I had never seen anything like that energy. He seemed like not a political candidate, but a rock star. I would say this blows the doors off of that. The feeling in the environment and the desire to elect her. I have no doubt that this will be a roller coaster, but I absolutely believe we can maintain this energy for 99 days. But I think that was part of the call too, which is to say, this work doesn't end the day after she's elected. It's going to be very difficult for the first woman, the first Black woman, the first AAPI woman to be president. And we have to stay together as a coalition and support her.
You know, in 2016, there was some energy for Hillary Clinton, but that obviously didn't translate to the general election. You're mentioning this shift in 2020. There was an overwhelming sense, I remember, that electability required a kind of white guy at the top of the ticket, which helped Biden in the primary. I guess you're identifying her race and gender as such a strength rather than electability weakness right now. I guess I want you to speak to why you think the notions of electability that so were ingrained in Democrats come 4 years ago, they seem to be free of right now.
It's all about generational change. The younger generation, I'm the mom of millennials and Gen Z kids, and they look at women running for office very differently than my generation or my mom's generation did. I think it's just being more accepting of the way a woman runs for office. She talks differently, she acts differently. And I think those are all seen as good things now, not drawbacks. Like being a woman is seen as a strength. And I think she has a real opportunity to lean into that.
The last question I have is just a clarification from a thing earlier. You said that you were kind of privately hoping that Biden stepped aside, but you recognize that a lot of people were getting kind of social media blowback from saying that publicly. How did you feel then after the debate in the last 3 weeks? Were you worried about the party? I mean, were you just going to support and hope? I guess I was saying if this change didn't happen, was there any plan?
I always think the Democratic Party will do the right thing in the end. And I felt like we were in this interminable waiting period. I know President Biden, he is always putting the country before party. I knew eventually we would get here, but it also felt like the clock was ticking. And when you get to just a few months to elect a different candidate, that's not a lot of time. But I also think now in retrospect, it worked out perfectly because the energy is so strong that I think it'll carry us over the next 99 days.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
After the break, we hear from some of those newly activated Harris donors themselves. Of that $200 million raised for Harris in a week, the campaign said 66% of it came from first-time donors this cycle. That number signals a new level of interest in this race. We wanted to hear what's motivating them to give now, and what specifically had changed in their thinking. And what we found was that some of it was about showing up in the ways that Shannon highlighted.
As soon as President Biden stepped down and it became obvious that Kamala Harris was going to be, the potential nominee, I went online and donated to her campaign immediately because I knew that they would be watching what kind of support she had right away and what kind of donations were coming in right away. And I just wanted to, be a part of that.
That was true for Mary Laurent from Nevada.
Because candidates, if you're not white and male, you're going to have barriers that have to be overcome.
Who told me she had long supported Harris.
Just seeing how everyone coalesced kind of inspired me to go ahead and donate. It's my first time donating to a campaign.
Martell Johnson, a Kentucky native living in Massachusetts, said he felt inspired to donate because everyone else was giving too.
I feel good about it. I think that I like our odds even more now, and I'm happily surprised that it wasn't the bloodbath that I foresaw. I didn't think that it would be this kind of coronation, if you will. I thought that it was going to be messy, and if they wouldn't have chosen Kamala, after Joe Biden, that would have created some very real problems within the party.
And Mary and Martell had something in common.
I would vote for President Biden if he was in a pine box.
They could throw him out on a stretcher, and I would have voted for him.
They were always going to vote for the Democratic nominee. Now, they were just more excited. But that wasn't true for all the new donors we talked to. Iram Khan of North Carolina said that when Biden was in the race, she was considering sitting the whole thing out. Once Harris was elevated, Khan donated around $100, the first time she'd given to a candidate this cycle.
I don't think he was. I've always liked him as a person on that level, especially when he was Obama's vice president. But I didn't think that, given where he is today, he was equipped to be president and lead the country. So I was not confident in voting for him. I was planning on writing in Ro Khanna or Gavin Newsom.
Is there for a specific reason? Is there an issue that's spoken most to you?
Oh, Gaza, of course. That's a big one.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And so can you just tell me about what you thought about his decision to step down, and how does this impact how you were thinking about Vice President Harris? Does she change how you were viewing the race?
I think initially when he stepped down and put Kamala's name forward, initially I was thinking, oh my God, we're toast.
What changed?
What changed was the buzz around her. So initially I was not confident because I wasn't sure she resonated with the masses. And I think it started with the African American women had joined a call. And when I saw that, and I saw that they'd stood behind her and raised significant amount of money in a span of one phone call, I was a little more inspired. And then the South Asian women had a call. Mm-hmm. And I joined that call. And there was a lot of buzz and excitement. And then they raised significant amounts of money as well. And when I saw that, I think my hopes went up a little bit. Like, you know what, she's a viable candidate.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about that Zoom call in particular? Like, did you come in? Was there a moment that someone spoke that really moved you? Like, I want to know specifically what it was that really shifted your perspective.
It was, first of all, seeing 4,000 women on the call. Mm-hmm. I think was really big. It was really big. I was disappointed not to see a lot of Muslim women on that call. And I think the Gaza issue still is a very contentious point. So I think she's got a long way to go getting the Muslim vote right now. But when I saw the energy on that call, I was pretty impressed. But then it was the chat on the side of the Zoom call. That everybody was fired up. Everybody was trying to get to do something. Everybody was saying, what can I do? I mean, I don't think my money makes a difference at all because I just gave a paltry amount, but I wanted to be part of that number that they talk about. Like, we raised X million or X amount. I wanted to know that I had put something in there as well. I just wanted to be part of it, part of the movement.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. Can you just tell me, going forward, is your vote rooted now? Do you think that Harris has this kind of set for November? Or are you still looking to kind of policy specifically about Gaza or others, and, your vote can be lost?
No, she's got my vote. I don't think she has everybody's vote yet, and I think this election could be lost. But she has my vote. I think that she has to fight for the election.
Thank you so much. Will you have a great rest of your day?
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye. Another donor we spoke to, Ricardo Garcia in Washington, D.C., said he gave money to Harris because he felt the party was finally listening to the voters.
I've always been a Democrat since I moved to this country 26 years ago. I've always leaned towards the Democratic Party. Through the years, I have not been happy with the Democratic Party, and I think after this election, I am going to change to independent.
Oh, interesting. Can you tell me specifically what are the issues that have made you a Democrat and what's caused you to be somewhat upset with the party?
Being an immigrant, I'm a U.S. citizen, but I didn't grow up in this country. But it didn't take me that much. It didn't take me that long to figure out how these political parties work.
Mm-hmm. Where'd you grow up, if you don't mind me asking?
Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
I have voted Democratic all my life, but now because of the extremist views of this party, I wouldn't vote for the Republicans because they're too extreme. So the Democratic Party, to me, is turning into something too extreme as well, to the opposite side. I'm more of a person, I want to be in the middle. I want to be more of a person that listens and works with each other.
Well, considering this and kind of how you were feeling about both parties, how were you feeling about the presidential election coming into this week before all the big changes? How were you feeling about Biden versus Trump? Did you know who you were going to vote for?
I actually was not going to vote.
Okay. And that's just because of how you said, because you felt kind of both parties had left you?
I just feel Joe Biden is not qualified for president, neither is Trump. If the government doesn't represent me, I'm going to speak it loud and I'm going to say it.
So how are you feeling now that Biden has stepped out of the race and it's now Vice President Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket?
It gave me hope. Unfortunately, I do not know much. I don't know much about her. I'm trying to now, for the first time, do my homework and find out who she is. I'm just going to say that she is our only hope. She is the option that we have. And she's younger. I can see she is inspired. She wants the best for the country. I believe she's what we need at the moment.
There does seem to be something about her that's drawn you in more than Biden has.
Oh, the fact that she's younger.
Okay.
The fact that she's can represent this country in a better form. Joe Biden is just old. It's just he had a good, and I'm actually proud of that. He stepped down because it showed me that he's not there to grab that power for life like the dictator governments do. They want to be in power as long as possible, no matter if the country is collapsing. So I think he's giving her a chance, and I trust that chance because he knows we need changes. And that's what caught my attention. And then I said, I'm going to find out more about her, and I'm going to make my first donation. I told myself I have to make a donation, and I have to set to a weekly donation until for the next 3 months.
Wow. How much did you weekly donate?
I'm going to give it all. I gave $50, and I'm going to give $200 a month.
So I guess one question I have is, do you still plan on registering as independent after all this? You sound as if the Democratic Party has kind of won you back over.
Yeah, well, I don't think the Democratic Party has won me over. I will always lean towards the Democratic Party for sure.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know. I mean, I will have to see. Maybe you're right. Maybe they won me over, which I've never lost that touch. It's like when you're upset with your mother and you just maybe work it out, and of course it's your mother. You have no choice, right? Because it's your own mother.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Ricardo is now a Harris supporter and donor. But before Biden bowed out, he fit into another category I'm still curious about. The double haters. The people who truly could not believe that their choice in 2024 was between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. One voter in Delaware told us he wasn't a Trump fan, but didn't like either option.
I won't vote for Joe Biden in November because he looked like he is sneezed away from the ICU.
And why won't you vote for Donald Trump in November?
Because I don't know how true it is, but they talking about Donald Trump is about to take away punishing the police.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so for you, the solution would just not be to vote at all.
For me, would be the option of voting for Snoop.
You putting Snoop, like Snoop Dogg?
Yes.
So I decided to call him back. Hello, my name's Ested Herndon. I'm a reporter with the New York Times. I was looking for Kevin.
What's happening?
And for him, Harris's background as a prosecutor was now top of mind.
I know a lot of people be like, oh, well, she put innocent people behind bars and all this other crazy. You know, in the system, it's not perfect. And she also did a lot of programs for people that's getting out of jail to actually reform themselves respectfully. So it's more about like the heart. I feel as though her heart is more of a leaning towards an equal balance.
Do you think you're going to vote in November now?
Yeah. I mean, with everything that's in hand, yeah. I can see it.
So what changed to make you want to vote?
The fact of the person, Joe Biden, you know, we don't know what can happen with him. You know, he might catch old timers at an important decision. You know, I feel more confident that this new possible president can actually serve all 4 years and really make a difference and a push.
Another double hater, a woman named Kristen in Colorado, told me this spring that she wasn't planning to vote, but...
If there was a woman that ran, I'd probably vote for a woman.
So I called her back too. So Biden stepped down principally because a lot of people had some questions about his age after the debate. Did that include you, or how do you feel about his decision to step out the race?
Well, the fact that a woman is stepping in, I fully support.
So that's what made you feel better about it?
I do. I mean, ultimately, I don't know how much of an impact, Kamala Harris is going to have on, the way everything's going, but better a woman than an old white man, whether it's Trump or Biden or any of them.
Well, that's part of the reason we wanted to call you. Remember you saying you were looking for kind of new blood and you were looking for someone who, can mix up the 2 old guys that we had up there. Now that you've gotten that, do you think your excitement is more just driven by what you see from Kamala Harris specifically? Or is it just that, there's a new candidate with some fresh life in it?
Maybe a little bit of both.
Awesome. Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty depressing, as a society in general. Like if you were to jump on social media, what are the first things that people are stating about women who want to step in these positions? They talk about their looks. They talk about their age. They talk about their habits. It's nothing with substance.
Mm-hmm.
I highly doubt that the majority of people I can go outside of my door and talk to have any idea of anything she stands for or her opinions or anything like that.
So when you see those attacks, how does that make you respond to her?
Oh, it makes me like her a little bit more.
Not all of the double haters we reached had changed their minds, particularly some younger voters who were focused on issues like the war in Gaza. Calvin, a 25-year-old Texan, said he will still likely sit it out.
While I do appreciate there are some parts of her platform that are much more progressive in terms of labor, still does not make me particularly looking forward to voting.
And Elle, a 22-year-old activist in Oregon, was positive that nothing had really changed.
Yeah, I feel the same. Still, given that Biden has dropped out of the race, I feel the same given that Kamala Harris is now running for president. I still uphold the same beliefs and hold her to the same standard that I would anyone, and don't really plan on endorsing her as well.
So measuring a vibe shift is more of an art than a science. But by any metric, there definitely seems to be something in the air. The Zooms, the new donors, the thousands of people who showed up at Harris's Tuesday rally in Atlanta. Democrats are currently on the ups, for maybe the first time since this race began. In most national polls taken in the last 2 weeks, Vice President Harris has closed the gap with former President Trump. And in the most recent survey from the New York Times and Siena College, nearly 90% of voters agreed with President Biden's decision to step down. In fact, the only question most Democrats are asking about their big candidate gambit right now is what took so long. That's the runner for Thursday, August 1st, 2024. And now, the rundown.
Good afternoon, NABJ, and welcome to a conversation with former President Donald Trump. This
week, Donald Trump set for an interview in Chicago at the annual convention of the National Association of Black Journalists.
You've attacked Black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking Black supporters to vote for you, why should Black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. The first question.
Almost immediately, the conversation turned contentious as Trump refused to answer several questions regarding past statements about race and Black communities.
I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the Black population of this country. I've done so much for the Black population of this country, including employment, including...
He also revived a derogatory attack on Kamala Harris, falsely questioning her Black identity.
Just to find it, sir, do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say, no, I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She is always identified as a Black woman. She went to a historically Black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a Black person.
Just to be clear, sir,
as it happens, I was actually in the room. And let's just say, it wasn't received well. And
everybody go crazy right now for Meg Thee Stallion!
on Tuesday night in Atlanta, the Harris campaign held a rally featuring a live performance by Megan Thee Stallion.
We're about to make history with the first female president. The first Black female president. Let's get this done, hotties. Hotties for Harris.
But make no mistake, this campaign is not just about us versus Donald Trump. Truly, this campaign is about two very different visions for our nation. One focused on the future, the other focused on the past.
Harris ended the night with a speech that detailed some of her campaign promises.
So he won't debate, but he and his running mate sure seem to have a lot to say about me.
And a message for Donald Trump. After he said last week, he will not attend the next planned presidential debate in September.
I do hope you'll reconsider to meet me on the debate stage. Because as the saying goes, if you've got something to say, say it to my face.
Harris is expected to name her vice presidential candidate by next week and campaign with that person right away. Top contenders for the spot include Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. There are just 18 days till the Democratic National Convention and 96 days until the general election. We're down to double digits, y'all. See you next week. The Run-Up is reported by me, Ested Herndon, and produced by Elisa Gutierrez, Caitlin O'Keefe, and Anna Foley. It's edited by Rachel Dry and Lisa Tobin, with original music by Dan Powell, Marian Lozano, Pat McCusker, Diane Wong, Sophia Landman, and Elishaba Etup. It was mixed by Sophia Landman and fact-checked by Will Peischel. Special thanks to Paula Schumann, Sam Dolnick, Larissa Anderson, David Haufinger, Maddie Masiello, Mahima Chablani, Jeffrey Miranda, and Elizabeth Bristow. Do you have questions about the 2024 election? Email us at therunup@nytimes.com. Or better yet, record your question using the voice memo app in your phone. That email again is therunup@nytimes.com. Thanks for listening, y'all.